Hello friends, my name is Emile and welcome back to some more Reach the Peak, the show where you guys recommend cars and then I take them up a hill climb course to see which car can come out on top. Today we have 5 vehicles for you here as usual, and we're going to be kicking things off with a massive Italian luxury SUV from Lamborghini. Yeah. It is the 1986 Lamborghini LM002, 450 horsepower, 369 foot-pound of torque, 5,952 pounds of weight. It is an A-class car, 726 MPI. When equipped with the snow tyres, it is the most powerful vehicle here today. It's the heaviest vehicle here today, unsurprisingly, and it is the highest in PI vehicle. The Lamborghini LM002 is quite the crazy contraption. Basically, what this is a massive military SUV with the Lamborghini Countach's V12 under the bonnet. It is as crazy as it sounds, and honestly, it's probably one of my favourite luxury SUVs. I'm not usually a huge fan of luxury SUVs, but yeah, this one's suitably mental, so I like it. Also, it's actually kind of like a pickup truck as well, because it's got the pickup bed, which is absolutely useless. Anyways, of course pickup beds do not matter in Forza Horizon 3, so how does it drive? Well, it's pretty great actually. It's a really great car. It's very well set up for this sort of course, sort of unsurprisingly really. You know, the LM002, while sure, you know, you would think of it as a showpiece a la Lamborghini Urus, this thing can actually go off-road. It is a military vehicle technically, so it is very capable off-road. And, you know, it has the off-road suspension. Of course, we put better tyres onto it, but, you know, it's meant to run these sort of tyres anyway. It's got the ground clearance. It's very well set up for this. The only part that really isn't is the long gear ratios. I'm assuming that's just a carryover of the gearbox that they had to use. I assume this uses a Countach gearbox. I'm not too sure. But, yeah, it has got kind of long gears, which aren't the best for this sort of course. But admittedly, you know, it's still a very, very capable, good vehicle. I really enjoyed driving this one. It's probably one of the best set-up vehicles I've actually ever driven in this series. A really, really solid vehicle. If you haven't driven the LM002 yet and don't really know too much about it, I recommend doing some research. I recommend giving it a drive, especially if you want to go off-roading, because it's actually a really, very, very good car. It can actually put some sort of modern off-roaders to shame a little bit, really. Anyways, from a mad Lamborghini to a pretty mad German car, in all honesty. This is the 1972 Mercedes-Benz 300 SEL, 300 horsepower, 455 foot-pound of torque, 4,014 pounds of weight. Admittedly, this car weighs 4 pounds more because it has some visual upgrades on it. It has the touring car front lights, and it has a rear bumper delete on it as well. As a result, it is a A-class car, 704 MPI when equipped with snow tyres. It is plus 1 PI over what it should be. Usually it's a 703. However, with the body options, it goes up a PI for some reason. Anyways, the 300 SEL, what happens when you put the engine out of a massive limousine and stick it into what at the time was considered a relatively small family car? You get the mighty Mercedes-Benz 300 SEL. This thing was a Forza Fun prize a little while ago now. And I like the 300 SEL so much I actually bought 2 300 SELs at quite a cost actually. I believe this is my second one, of course. The first one you saw me do an actual build video on. So, the 300 SEL, what is it like to drive up here? Of course it is, or was, somewhat of a touring car. Big sort of luxury sedan as well, so not really designed to take on a hill climb course. How does it drive? It's odd. It is a rather odd car to drive. It just seems off. It doesn't... I can't quite put my finger on what's wrong with this car, but just go ahead and try and drive it yourself and you might be able to narrow it down a bit more than me. But it's like the gearbox seems a little bit odd, the ratios aren't too good, the handling is really very weird. It'll sort of randomly start oversteering, and I'm not sure if it's down to the rolliness of the suspension. Feels like it could be. I don't know what's wrong with the 300 SEL, but it just isn't a good car to drive. You know, admittedly, again, you know, 300 SEL, how good could it really be as a rally car? The answer is not particularly, really, in theory, but yeah, maybe you could off-road proof this thing. I wouldn't really recommend it. You know, there are plenty of other cars that you should be turning into rally cars that aren't the 300 SEL. Keep this thing on the road, keep it cruising, and the 300 SEL is great. Take it rallying, not quite as much, I'm afraid. Anyways, next up we have a Mopar hero. This is the 1969 Dodge Charger RT, which stands for Road Track. 425 horsepower, 490 foot-pound of torque, 3,671 pounds of weight. It is an A-class car, 724 MPI. When equipped with the snow tyres, it is the torquiest vehicle here today. So yeah, the Charger, out of all of the classic American muscle cars, I think this is my favourite of all of them. I'm not really a huge fan of classic American muscle cars, to be honest with you. That's just not really my thing. I actually like sort of handling in my car, and admittedly, I love crazy vehicles. See the Lamborghini LM002 earlier. But sort of classic American muscle cars that just never really been my thing. So the Charger's probably my favourite. I do think the Charger is a really nice looking car. Both this and even the modern Chargers, you know, the 4-doors. I do actually like the modern Chargers, although like with sort of this 69 Charger, they sort of eventually got uglier and uglier, and then you end up with the new one, which looks fine, but admittedly I'm a huge fan of the 2006 body style over the new Charger. Anyways, this is the 69, let's not speak about that. So, how does it drive? It's decent. It is very decent. We've had this car's relative, I guess you could call it, the Charger Daytona, the sort of more aerodynamic NASCAR-orientated version of this car track, and it was, for a time, our fastest ever muscle car, and the Charger is very similar to that. It is decent, it is extremely fast. It does slide, as you'd expect. It rolls around a bit on the corners. Of course, Chargers are not known for having the most sophisticated suspension in the world, even in this road track model. No, it doesn't have the most sophisticated suspension in the world, but yeah, it is a decent enough muscle car, really. You know, if you are going to take a muscle car off-roading, the Chargers aren't a good fit, a pretty good fit for it. In fact, to be perfectly honest with you, these Chargers are really good platforms for doing whatever you want with them. In fact, my S1 class race car of choice is actually a Charger. Just like in Forza Motorsport 6, my R-class car of choice was a NASCAR swapped all-wheel drive Charger. In this game it is a V8 swapped all-wheel drive Charger. So yeah, these things, I mean, admittedly it's heresy to swap the engine and all-wheel drive, blah blah blah, but they're really good cars if you can build them up properly. So yeah, definitely give the Charger a shout if you haven't already. I assume you have. Next up, we have a British rallying hero. This is the 1979 Talbot Sunbeam. 148 horsepower, 150 foot-pound of torque, 2,116 pounds of weight. This is a B-class car. 620 in PI. It is the lowest torque vehicle here today, and it is the lightest vehicle here today. The Talbot Sunbeam. I always kind of like the Sunbeam, really. For my American friendos out there, you'll probably know this car a little bit better as the Omni. The Sunbeam is sort of the predecessor to the Omni, Plymouth Horizon, Talbot Horizon, you know, all those sort of vehicles. This is the car that came before that. Interestingly enough, one of the first ever hot hatches produced, this and the Vauxhall Chevette, I believe, as far as the UK market goes, were the very first hot hatches. And of course, being one of the very first, that actually means this car has rear-wheel drive, unlike most hot hatches, which of course, going up the hill climb course isn't a good idea to have rear-wheel drive over front-wheel drive. And the Sunbeam, that's the least of the Sunbeam's problem, because the Sunbeam has one car braking issue with it. The rest of the car is fine, you know, it gets turned in well, it has, you know, a decent amount of traction and everything. It's pretty lightweight, doesn't have a lot of power, so, you know, you can get traction out the corners and so much. However, this car is ruined by one component, the differential. This is a horrendous differential. You know, going back to sort of Top Gear laps, you know, we see horrendous differentials quite a lot on some older cars. You know, they'll just eventually rise through the revs while you're turning corners, and it's not good. This is the first real time I think it's ever affected a car and reached peak. This thing just has an awful differential. It just spin all of its power away, and it doesn't go anywhere while it's doing it. So yeah, the Sunbeam, it upsets me a little bit, because I really like the Sunbeam. You know, this is a cool car. It's tuned by Lotus, for God's sake. But the differential in this thing just ruins it. If you put a race differential in this car, you could probably shave a second or two off this run. And I don't question that for a second. We'll get to the times later on. But you could, yeah, you could shave a second or so off this run if this thing actually had like a proper differential that was good. But as it stands, the diff in this thing is just, it's awful. It is horrendous, and it does ruin the car, unfortunately, which is a little bit of a shame. Finally today, we have a car that everyone seems to hate, but I love it. I absolutely love this car. It is the 1977 AMC Pacer X, 120 horsepower, 212 foot-pound of torque, 3,177 pounds of weight. It is a C-Class car, 562 MPI when equipped with the snow tyres. It is the least powerful vehicle here today, and it is the lowest PI vehicle here today, unsurprisingly really. Why do I like the AMC Pacer? I don't really know, to be honest with you. I just really like the way this car looks. It also occurred to me while I was driving up here, this car actually looks like a bar of Toblerone, which is kind of weird, you know, sort of from the rear end angle, because it's like a triangle, it does look a bit like a Toblerone. But anyways, yeah, the AMC Pacer, I like the way this car looks. It's goofy, I like it. I like the Ford Pinto as well, so, you know, don't, you know, I am a bit mental, I guess, in that regard. I think I prefer the Pacer to the Pinto, though. There's just something about the Pacer that's really cool to me. I love these vehicles, you know, they've got a really interesting history, you know, the fact that they were going to use rotary engines at one point, to how much the car was loved, and then it got loathed as time went on. You know, they've got a really interesting history, of course. I would like to see more than one Pacer in Forza. I'm a bit mad at it. I would like to see them bring in the V8 Pacer wagon at some point, because I think that would be a pretty interesting thing. Anyways, on to the actual handling. Well, the Pacer is actually kind of an interesting vehicle. You see, while it is a small car, it is very, very wide. It is rear-wheel drive, and it is American. So that does actually mean this thing gets some pretty beefy tyres. It means the suspension is quite soft. So how does it drive? It is good handling. It is a good handling vehicle, you know. You could probably use these things as actual rally cars, you know, if you was to really widen the track. You would need to put in a lot more power because it is slow. The other issue with the Pacer, unlike most small cars, you know, while it does have the big tyre widths, it is a wide car. That also comes at the part of it being a heavy car. You know, 3,177 pounds isn't bad for a Toyota Supra. It is quite bad for a small car, and yeah, you can feel the weight. It is a very heavy feeling car. It certainly isn't the best handling vehicle I've driven up here, you know, I'm not going to say that, but it does show some potential. I might have to play around with the AMC Pacer some more. Of course, I did an actual sort of road build with this thing where I tried to make it an all-round car, but I might actually try and do a Blizzard Mountain sort of snowy build with this car at some point, because with the huge tyre widths you can get on this thing and the, you know, relatively low starting PI, you could probably craft something pretty cool out of the AMC Pacer. Anyways, onto the times, and it isn't the AMC Pacer that's the fastest car today. It is the Lamborghini LM002, going to 97th place with a 220.240, which is a pretty good time. Beats the Cadillac Escalade by a little bit, which is kind of surprising, really, considering that is a modern car. Loses out to a Honda S2000 and a Dodge Challenger Hellcat, but a pretty good place for the LM002. Moving down the board some more, we find the Charger RT in 119th place with a 222.643, which is pretty good. Not sat around any muscle cars, really. It's a bit off a Buick Regal GNX. It's faster than the HSV GTSR. They're the only real muscle cars in that field, and it beats a bunch of other random stuff around there as well. The Mercedes-Benz 300 SEL goes into 156th place with 229.349, beats the Nissan Titan Concept by quite a while. We haven't had anything to do with 230 yet. Loses out to the Ford Bronco, the 87 Firebird. Yeah, that car just had weird handling, and that really did affect it, unfortunately. Moving down some more, we find the Talbot Sunbeam in 165th place with a 233.353. It does beat a Pontiac Firebird by 2 seconds, but yeah, it's down on a Crown Vic, it's down on the Chevrolet Bel Air. Again, if that thing had a better diff, it'd probably get into like the 231s, 232s, but yeah, as it stands, not too good. And finally today, the AMC Pacer finds itself in 178th place with a 251.438. It is a second off of a Ford F100. It is 6 seconds quicker than a Land Cruiser, which is a bit odd to say. Yeah, the AMC Pacer was never going to be the fastest thing in the world, but yeah, I still love it regardless. Anyways, friends, thank you all very much for watching this episode of Reach Peak. As always, if you have cars you'd like to request for this series, you can do so down below in the comment section. Add your comments, and I will add it to my list of cars, which can be found in the description. With that all being said and done, friends, thank you all very much for watching. My name has been the Real Emile, and until next time, a farewell.